Konnichiwa, and welcome to the 37th Annual Arizona Matsuri. My name is Peter Krogel, and I am the Chief Instructor of Arizona Bujinkan, Ninpo, and Budokai. The Bujinkan is a traditional martial arts system that is based on 9 schools of battlefield and ninja arts, brought together by our teacher, Dr. Masaaki Hatsumi, the 34th generation Grandmaster from Togakure-ryu, which is one of the older of the schools. Today, I would like to share with you some of the buki, or weapons, that we use in our training. First off, why don't we start with this big fella here. This is a kasarigama. The kasari is chain, and the gama is this sickle-like end here. The way this works is this chain would be thrown with this weighted end to wrap around either the swordman coming in or someone with a spear. And then when it's locked tight, then you can close the distance to cut or stab with this gama or sickle end. So this is a bit unwieldy for normal use, so we also have this kusari fundo. The kusari fundo, which is a much shorter version of what was going on with the kasarigama. Here you have what, maybe 18 inches of chain with 2 weights. These are the fundo, okay? The way in which this was used is to deflect or to wrap. And then you can strike, once you've closed the distance by wrapping, you can strike kyusho or vital points with the weighted end. You can also use the corners of these weights for pressuring on bone or facial parts to then take someone to the ground to control them. It's quite lethal. This can also be spun to strike with. These are suntetsu. They're a bit like brass knuckles here in the West, but they have some unique features to the Japanese. Of course, you can strike with these rings on your hands and your fingers, but you can also turn the protruding bars to stab or strike or hook on to flesh or the neck and use it for throws. They can be used this way to stop a blade and then parted for striking. Here we have a jutei. Jutei were traditionally carried by the police in feudal Japan. And so the jutei was a bar that has a little hook on it. So initially, the jutei would be a symbol of law enforcement. So rather than having a badge to identify themselves, they would use the jutei very prominently to show that they were the authority. And it could be used for striking, for grappling, for even catching blades here in this hook on the side. The rope would have been used for tying the offender up after they were subdued, and there's a little whistle or a fue on the bottom so that you can call for assistance. There were a lot of different kinds of jutei. This particular one is kind of a silver wash on it. And so that silver wash, it was thought that by using the end of the jute in the mouth of the deceased person, you could tell if they were poisoned or not, because the silver would turn black from the poisoning. So in feudal Japan, it was not normal for people to really touch dead people. So frequently the jute could be used to turn someone over, to open up the kimono to look at any stab wounds, to basically search a person, a dead person, without having to physically touch them yourself. So that was why these frequently were dipped in some sort of a silver wash. This long model here was used as, you can see it's almost kind of pointed at the end. So when prisoners were transported, they were squished into a basket-shaped carrier and then would be schlepped by lower class individuals to court or to other jails. And frequently it was a rough ride. They were all trussed up and they would complain. This pointed model was used to poke them in the ribs through the basket carrier to shut them up. So the Japanese had a variety of these kind of jute. This jute is quite heavy. It has a hole through the middle here and a hole here. This was used as a signaling device. They would put a powder charge down through the middle here and a fuse here. When they were out searching for a criminal, they could light this to signal, and it would go off like a flare to signal their compatriots to come running in their direction to help them subdue the perpetrator. Jute were common to the police force in Edo period Japan, which was from early 1600s to the middle of the 1800s. After that, people started carrying their own weapons, similar in style to the jute. And so kiseru, or pipes, were very commonly used amongst men in Japan. And so these were adapted to other uses. This particular kiseru is made of brass and bronze, and so while it functions as a smoking pipe, it's quite heavy as well, and so would be used for striking or grappling as needed. This is another model, but it is more of a shikomi or type of kiseru in the sense that it has a hidden weapon. So it also is made of bronze, but it has a dagger concealed inside of it. So that gives it the kiseru, or the shikomi kiseru name. This is a maruhoshi. It looks sort of like the jute in the sense that it has a hook here, but it was used in the left hand to parry a sword or a spear coming in, and you would have your sword in the right hand to cut or stab over the top or underneath. So you could trap an incoming weapon or just deflect it and maneuver around it. The weight the tassel would have a weighted end, perhaps maybe like a lead sinker concealed inside of it, so that you could strike with it as well. In feudal Japan, many men would also carry instead of a sensu, theirs would be an iron fan. It would look and function just like the regular sensu. However, on the outside, this part was made of iron. So it would be carried like this, and when there was a problem, you can fight with it here. So it would be used for striking, for grappling, hooking, pressing in against kyusho or pressure points. It had many uses. It was also great for deflecting a weapon being stabbed at you or thrown at you. So this was called a tesson. There was another kind of tesson as well. This tesson doesn't have the paper on it any longer. Instead, what it has just these tines. In this particular model, while it's iron here, it also has these pointed tines. These spokes are pointed so that you could stab with them as well. So if you can imagine what this might have looked like with the paper of a regular sensu on it, but hidden inside that paper are these pointed tines for stabbing. So this gives you an idea of how lethal this weapon could have been, because there's a lot of those little spokes on it. Then we go on to some ninja weapons. This is a kunai. It's a rather short kunai, very much, it's bladed on both sides and could be thrown because it's quite pointed. But it was also a tool that would be carried by the ninja. It could be used for prying open windows and doors that were sliding, and could also be used to lock a window or a door to prevent it from sliding. This is a senban shuriken, a four-pointed shuriken. This is used in Togakure-ryu, and they would traditionally carry 9 of these, two in the belt here, 4 in a hidden pocket on the inside, and 1 behind the back in a pocket at the back of the neck, so that you were always able to be throwing a weapon to effect an escape or to distract someone coming to attack you. While they're dodging this, you could draw a weapon, draw your sword or some other weapon to then enter and counter what they're doing. So this is a senban shuriken. It also had that tool capability in the sense that it can be wedged in the track of a sliding door or window to prevent the movement. This is a tetsubishi. It is an iron spike affair that wherever it's dropped, it has a point up. So these were used typically to prevent someone following you, to slow them down perhaps, or to stop them. The way in which that would work is you would have a little bamboo bottle with you that you could then trail them out as you moved swiftly in your escape. And so then the follower would step on these. So typically these would be used in a house on the tatami mats, in a stairwell, at a gate. These particular tetsubishi are actually called onabishi, which means it's a seed pod that grows on a water hemlock plant that is harvested in the early fall, and they are very pointed, so wherever they land, there's always a point up, and it would be very unpleasant to step on however they land. Today, that's all the weapons we have to share with you. You'll notice we have this armor on either side. This suit here would be from the early Sengoku period, late Muromachi period, where there was these really wide sode. This was used as kind of a shield to protect against arrows and more battering kinds of weapons. If we look over here, this model is from the late Sengoku period, where they needed a bit more maneuverability on the battlefield. This style had a much shorter sode and a bit more armor plating to accommodate the kinds of weaponry they saw at that time, would be the late 1500s and early 1600s. Thank you for coming and visiting us today, and I hope that next year we get to show our toys to you in person at a physical Matsuri. Thank you very much. Domo arigato.